come off camera because I'm still in my pajamas.
Oh, we don't care. We like to see you.
Well, I know it's different when the recording's on. Hi, everyone. So we'll see how this goes. Let me. I first need to launch my system here again with. I've got a bunch of. I'll share my screen in a second. I just got a bunch of directories up. I don't know what's private and what's not at the moment. Okay, so just let me make sure I get a good screen up. So yeah, I was telling before the recording started, I was saying that learned how to deal with a bunch of exceptions and so forth. So let me share the screen. If I can find the right window. Okay, you should be seeing the screen now.
Yes.
So I often just make sure to start the browser state and everything at the beginning, so I know it's repeatable. I often go through this same routine of restarting the node, clearing out the cache and so forth. I'm running 0.9.1. And then I also often restart the app. You've seen this recording, we've talked through this a few times. But then I go to this test screen. And so I've been building this out. And often the way I test it is by doing sort of the simplest things first. So some of the simplest things are listening for a name. I'm talking simplest both in my code as well as simplest in the server side. So what happened here, let's see, no, it should be good. So I'm not sure what happened here. I've still got an exception going on that doesn't make sense. So maybe we could debug this live. Let's see.
The Casper is not available.
That's what it says. Yeah, so but it's this making transition to approved block handler state. Isn't that when it becomes available?
Yes, we need to wait for a while.
Or did I even after this?
Yes.
Okay, so this is just one example of many of that I haven't perhaps handled, or the R node. The R node doesn't tell you it's not available. It says that name is not there. So I think that's okay. Actually, I think it returned correctly. So in terms of what I expect, because I'm surfacing these errors. Okay, so then the next thing that is sort of the next easiest on the interface is proposing a block, and this returns the correct answer at this point, no new deploys. And then the other things are a lot more complicated in the sense that behind the scenes on the JavaScript side, they're doing a deploy, a proposed block, and then a listen for data at name. So we'll see if this works this morning. So this was the demo Genesis contract, and it came back as expected with the 9,000 test rev. And then we can check the balance just with a different Rolang to get it back. So I'm going through the happy path first to see if it works, and then we'll send 100 test revs to Alice. And this I just got working yesterday based on a comment that Kayvon made about how the deployer signature should look. Yeah, so sorry, I zoom in a little bit so you can see where this was. So here's Kayvon was nice enough to show me this. Oh, let's see, with deployer byte stream. Okay, so this needs to be a byte stream that's eventually created from the public key, right? So I didn't know that before. I was getting an error earlier without having the right public key. So I was really happy when all this came into being. So then, and another thing I had to fix with paying Alice is that the original contract in the test did not have Alice's Rev Vault created yet. It assumed it was there. So what I do for testing purposes is I copy whatever was deployed from the above buttons down into this other test area. And I ended up adding, let me zoom in so probably can see it a little easier. I ended up adding this this send. So I created a 2 vault channel and sent another find or create to it to make sure that it was in place when sending to Alice or whoever the 2 was. So that was a change I made relative to the demo. And the other thing that I ended up doing was I have this per deploy channel public name that I'm creating every time. So you see digin122. So this is a random number, and this allows me to make sure I'm not listening to some old something old I sent or something that was pressed on a different button that was completely unrelated to that. So what in this test framework I'm doing is every time I hit test row, it's actually generating and substituting a new one. So even though it's otherwise the same contract, I'm getting a different result, and then I'm or a different public name or channel on the way back. So, and then in the result, you'll see down in this test area, I'm just showing the unparsed string as it comes back from listening name data response. And you see here gbool true. That's what we're parsing for, that we're caring about in this case. And the rest is about the block info. It's presented a little nicer here. Let me see, zoom in this one. It just a different parsing of it, but so this is how I know the listening name data response came back with true in it. But there's a lot of other stuff I don't necessarily understand or parse all the time correctly. But this is the challenge of parsing this stuff when it comes back. Let me show you a little bit of the code behind here. Let me see. I'll look for test row in my UI code. Figure it out. Any questions so far? I have people still there? I hear people. Can someone say something? Make sure I'm still on audio. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
There you are.
Yes, we're still here.
Okay. Okay. I just got quiet. Yeah. So this is what the.
Will this be on GitHub?
Not yet. I'm still kind of closed source at the moment for various reasons. And we can talk about that offline. Test. So here's the test row, and here's some of the exception handling that I'm having to do. But I wanted to drill down. Oh, okay. This is after the button is pressed. It goes into this test row routine. Then it's calling this propose, listen, and parse. All right. What am I doing wrong? There it goes. Start navigated. And then it's running through these functions: deploy, create, listen, and parse. And I wanted to show you some examples of parsing. And here's a simple example where it's doing getting the result, taking the right of an either. So it's if it is returning the listening name data response side of either, it's called is right, and then I get the proto string out of that. And if it's left, I deal with it a different way. And I should clarify that there's sort of two different ethers in this mix. There's an either that is returned from Casper, which is called coop.rchain.ether.ether. And then there's the Scala native ether, which behaves differently. So that caused a little bit of confusion to me earlier. So I'm going to go hop back up to the UI and show you that when it gets back to the UI, then I also have parsing to do. In this case, I'm just showing the block results when it comes back nicely. But in other cases, let's see, like the faucet. So here's the faucet me 9000 test revs. On click, I'll do this create Genesis. What is? Okay. You see a bunch of the Rolang that it's putting. Here's the I'm making a substitute as I deploy it for this channel name. But I want to show you the parsing that one has to do in some way off of the gRPC. And I think this would be true in JavaScript as well. Somewhere it has to be parsed. And so in the case of the result for creating Genesis, here's the kind of parsed expression I had to deal with. And I'm sure there's an easier way to parse this, but this is what I had to do. And you can kind of get the hang of it after you do a few of these. From seeing the raw results. So let me just I'll copy this and show you back in the raw responses how this comes back, and then we'll put this right next to here. So I'm trying to think how this starts. So you see data with block info. So I think that's block results. Let's see, post block data head expressions. I'm afraid I can't quite. Oh, this was if it's the happy path. Let's see. I think I pulled a different. Oh, I did Genesis. I'm sorry. Let me go back and create Genesis for Bob. I wasn't looking at the same contract, and this is one of the points I made in Discord earlier. Is the shape of the parsing has to match the shape of the Rolang that you deployed. because in general, it's going to look different. If, as a simple example, if you parse for a string, it's going to look different than an integer or Boolean. But then if you are parsing a sequence of strings, it looks even different, even to get the first string. This one is going to fail if I do it again. All right, so this isn't going to match exactly, but you'll get the idea because I already did the faucet with Bob. So it's going to show his balance. Maybe this will be okay. So here you see data with block info. I can't explain this just because I'm not awake enough yet, but you get the idea that eventually you're getting this what's an expression instance, which is right here, and then you're getting a G int of 9,000, and the UI needs it as a string. So just to give you a flavor of what's going on. And then the other kind of, so these are kind of quote unquote normal responses, and then there's exception handling as well, like when if our node is not responding correctly. One of those that I discovered was if there's a parsing error. So let's put some bad row lang together. Let's just get rid of some brackets or something. I'm just doing some random things. And I don't know if I'm handling this. Why didn't that do it? Okay. Huh, okay. Let's see what happens. Yeah, so you see here there's a co-op.rchain.rowlang.interpreter error. That comes back as an exception. And you see syntax error trying to recover and continue parse. So that's the whole reason I built this part of my test UI, is so when I get this, because of my bad Rowlang code elsewhere, I can figure out. So it's not exactly a REPL, but it helps me figure things out. And it turns out that I'm not bringing that exception back to the UI, so this is misleading to me or the user at the moment. So I have to surface that exception somehow, other than in the developer console. But so anyway, that's what I've been up to. But I've been really excited about getting this far with what's going to become, these basic wallet features of faucet, checking balance, and sending revs. That's the beginning. So, any questions?
It's awesome, man.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks for sharing.
You're welcome. Did I go too fast, or do you want me to go over any of that again in a little bit slower fashion? Any questions that you had watching that?
The wallet is the app.
Yes. So the only centralized part about it is this Envoy proxy. And it's my intention that there can be many Envoy proxies, and the wallet will choose from among, several. So ideally, given the current architecture constraints, it would be the wallet would come pre-configured with a set of Envoy allow the user to pick one at random or to choose one specifically, and that's really important for testing purposes. Or perhaps there's a round-robin DNS And that's, again, that's centralized, but it's practical. So it's pretty well decentralized if the user can pick which envoy they're talking to. So let's
Yes.
say there's an Envoy proxy in front of Jim's node, and I trust Jim, then I can point to that Envoy proxy and continue to use it. And then ideally, there's a way to allow the user to configure it. Then it's a DApp.
Yes.
And philosophically, what I'm hoping to do also is to avoid, any centralized services, or alert the user when they're about to go down that path. So, for example, the commercial wallets that are out there today, all display a price from an exchange, right? So that you know how much you're paying someone in your local currency, and that's a very practical thing. So the challenge to the RChain community is, how do we get that equivalent via the node, right? So it'd be someone, even though it's an Oracle process, at least from a wallet perspective, getting that off chain would be more trustworthy than going to a URL to get it.
Thomas Love, I think, did a poll request on the Powerbox row dot I guess it's IO dot colon HTTP.
And that would be coming out of the server, going somewhere else on HTTP?
Right, that could be consulting in Oracle.
Oh, I didn't see that. Probably should be HTTPS, hopefully, but yeah, that's great.
Yeah. He's also doing one to do peer-to-peer protobuf.
What's an example of how that would be used?
Basically, you could, deploy on another node from Rolang.
Oh, without downloading from GitHub? Oh no, deploy. Well, I remember some conversation. So how is that better than going through the gRPC process? Or
well, the point is that a node can talk to another node a lot easier. It doesn't have to do any conversion at all. So when you use the gRCP, the row IO gRCP or whatever it's called, you can just send you can just send a process. Of course, there's problems with the unforgeable names.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking. Yeah, I don't know how that would work, and why a local node wouldn't be good enough. I guess if it gets too large, these nodes, as they grow, will require lots of memory and lots of disk space. So maybe that's part of the motivation.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what he has in mind. I'm looking at supporting foreign channels generally, so that would include HTTP channels, but it would also include other blockchains, and one of those other blockchains is RChain, an RChain shard or a fork.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned. Okay, now this is coming back together. You mentioned some of this on Joshy's office hours. Is that correct? Okay,
Yeah.
now the rest of it's coming together. Yeah, so if you do an HT or whatever the Powerbox IO dot external or HTTP call out, wouldn't that be a lot of non-determinism? Because if two nodes had to do that in order to get consensus around the result, then they, most likely or would be less likely to get the same value.
Right.
That's okay, I guess. Then whichever one wins, but
Yeah.
I mean, if here's an interesting use case. Let's say every time the HTTP came back, it got a unique return because of whatever, some cookie or some random number in the thing. Well, that's still something that Casper needs to solve, right? It needs to decide on one.
Yeah, it's like a little bit like the integer consensus that was worked out in one of the consensus collabs where essentially you take a median, take the median of the integer. Now, I don't know how that would be incorporated into Casper.
That's interesting. But yeah, it would be. It's an interesting question if there were random stuff coming back. How Casper would deal with such a diverse set. It has to pick somebody at random or by the validator's weight. Hey, I wanted to show you one other thing while I was thinking about it. So the other thing that I'm hitting this faucet me again. The other thing I hope is going to improve in later nodes is just the latency. Like this time the button took 11.2 seconds to run. Let's see, I haven't done any to GW yet. See if that's correct. So this is all on the local. This is all on my local host, and most of this going on, I think, is Casper. So maybe it's because of the rhythm of Casper is sort of fixed. But I'm really curious to connect this up with the testnet that's live on what's it, 0.9.2. But I first have to get the signing process in. One of the things that's interesting is one of the libraries I'm looking at that is this thing called Eddy, which is funny, of course, because my name is Ed. And it wraps Tweet NACL JavaScript. But the other thing that's interesting is who created this. So you may recognize these names, Jim.
All right, yeah.
So, yeah, this Matthew's a great cryptographer, and he was on the Scenario project for a while, and Henry Till was on Scenario, and he was on the RChain core for a while as well. He built a lot of the RSpace code. So it's just interesting that this was built. The check-ins were around the Scenario days 2 years ago. So I find that really, really interesting. So we're gonna take a look at this. This is a this is a Scala.js facade for or wrapper around this NACL Tweet NACL cryptographic library, which I need something like this to pull in this ED25519 signature. Previously, I was using some of the Ethereum libraries, which had a different curve. And ideally, from a browser perspective, we would be using the browser native library for cryptographic signing, because it would be a more trustworthy source than JavaScript from outside. But because JavaScript can have a man-in-the-middle attack, right? And therefore, if there were a browser extension, so you know, a better. I'm trying to remember what it was called. Web crypto is part of it, but yeah, subtle crypto is to me a more ideal crypto library to use. But say again.
Sorry, that was my speaker.
Oh, okay. What I was saying, this would be a more ideal way to handle crypto, but or cryptographic signing in browser. However, it doesn't support the ED25519. So that's why we can't use this. But this would be a better way to do it. It doesn't say which curves it supports, but when you drill down, it doesn't. So maybe if they add it in the future, that'd be awesome. Anyway, more show and tell fun.
Do we have a mechanism before we propose a block? We know how much gas it's gonna cost, and do we plan to integrate this function to the wallet?
Oh, yeah. So it hasn't been my biggest problem thus far. So that would be a good thing to implement. The cost, you know, accounting and APIs are still being worked out, but my bigger challenge is around how to fund the wallet development and to get additional developers on it. And that's also related to this open source question Jim had. So combination of all that, but you know, as you know, the whole funding around the cooperative and the Archain development and the price of the rock are all kind of related to what I believe. You know, there's a number of issues historically why there's been challenges. I won't repeat all of that, but in my opinion, the most fundamental part is the readiness of the platform, and that's just been demonstrated in the last month and a half in a really credible way, in my opinion. Prior to that, it was very challenging for a dApp developer. You know, there's been obviously RSong, Robot, Dan and Joshy's work on Archain API, but I couldn't get this wallet stuff done until the last few weeks. You know, it's just blocked. So I'm hoping by this and by the other work that Greg Meredith's doing on funding, that things will turn around. But yeah, it's for me personally, and for the future of this particular wallet code, it's really going to be dependent on funding more so now. Up to this point, it's been based on you know, feature readiness.
So I see. So you mean the core platform side has not implemented this cost counting API yet, right?
Not that I'm aware of. It's actively under development right now. Joe Denman and others are working on it, and I think it's planned for the next testnet release. One of the reasons why they had to put code signing in sort of unexpectedly last week was because it's needed for cost accounting, or it was convenient, and also the core development team didn't create a branch for 0.9.1, so they had to, or it was much easier for them to just take current dev. But anyway, sorry, that's off track. Yeah, so they're implementing cost accounting now, and what I don't know is whether you can get a prediction of what something will cost. I believe it's going to be somewhat like Ethereum, that that you specify in the deploy, you know, the maximum gas you're willing to spend, and we certainly could expose that, or any wallet developer could expose that, but it would be, you know, in rev, how that would be expressed, the maximum rev you're willing to pay for something. So, Attic B, what is that? How you like to be called by name, and then what would how would you want that to be exposed to the user?
Yeah, I think something like Ethereum at the beginning should be good enough. And in the future, probably we want something, you know, more chain specific. I think we definitely we can support more features, right?
More features, yeah. In addition to the gas limit.
Yeah, like the R-Space, from my understanding, is a lease contract, so you can specify how long I'm going to lease this space, right?
Oh, right. In the case of the basic wallet contracts, I believe those should kind of last forever while there's a balance in them. But that's a great question, you know, beyond the user interface. There's, so far, I haven't contemplated anything that's going to be on chain. Well, any of the basic features, anything that's on chain is going to be in these Rev vaults or the registry. There are some interesting policy decisions that the core team's going to need to make about how long a you know, a channel or a public name is going to hang around. You know, is it going to hang around forever, or is there can there be garbage collection, and is it you know, what's reasonable? So Josh and I were talking. I was suggesting one approach, even for names, is to give an expiration of the name. So in the case of a wallet app, these only need to hang around for, you know, 5 minutes or something like that. But in the case of other apps, maybe they need to hang around for a month or longer. And so how does an R node, the protocol, know how long they should hang around? I guess it's Casper. So maybe that has to be expressed in the intention during the deploy, and therefore that would be related to the gas cost. So I don't know. I think this is all relatively trivial stuff. What's going to be the expensive stuff is, you know, where there's, I don't know, recursion, or where there's storage of really large data, like RSong will have to deal with. And so I think do we know if RSong is going to store data in the registry or its own contracts or on names? Right now, it's last I looked, which was about a month ago, it was storing them on public names. Has that changed?
I know there was supposed to be work being done on that,
But do we know what the design target is?
no, I don't know.
Okay, I'm just curious. It doesn't.
Yeah. The eval currently gives an estimate of cost, so that we at least can use that beforehand, before the deploy, to know how much to expect.
Okay. Eval, to my knowledge, isn't available via gRPC. It runs a mini version of the Pro VM, I think, in a separate, I'll call it a sandbox. I don't know if that's technically accurate, but it's not, you know.
Right. Well, you can use it during development anyway.
Yeah.
And,
No, that's cool.
Get an estimate, and there probably should be a pragma in the contract code or something that I don't know where we would put it, so that the user of a contract could determine from the source anyway what the expected cost would be.
Yeah, yeah.
So it looks like they're a little later than 20 minutes.
It's okay. So one of the questions you may know, Jim, or others may know, is who else is working on wallets? I know that Dan has been working on a command line wallet. The core team created these demo script wallets, and that was great. And I've heard of one other community member working on a wallet, although I haven't seen any public progress. I don't know if that's public or not. And I don't know how seriously to take that effort in terms of time. And then I was curious if there's other, and I know that for our song to reach its potential, it needs wallet features in it, for or wallet-like features to handle the benefits back to the song creators. And I haven't seen those updates in the our song repo yet. Anything else going on the wallet front that people are aware of that want to share?
Well, there's the initial work on our sign. And,
Yes.
The requirement, for having a browser-based wallet, which I don't know what work's being done on that, but there's the intention for us to incorporate a wallet into the Social Ledger portal front end, which is a browser-based app.
And is your intent to use the RChain API?
I think so. I mean, you're talking about fixing that. Currently it's being browser-based. I'm not sure what other options we have.
Well, there is a way to configure Envoy so that it exposes more JSON-friendly gets and posts. But I haven't explored it. But if anyone's interested, I could dig up some links that back in around, I want to say August of last year, there was an architect named Jack Mills that was contemplating, or maybe he was brought on to RChain Cooperative to help with dApp developers, and he did some research around how Envoy and other dApp architectures could be put together. So I have a few notes from that if anyone is interested.
Yes.
Okay, Dimworm, I have to dig it. I looked for it the other day and I couldn't find it, but I know I have it somewhere. So I'll hunt for it, Dimworm, and send you something, or post it on the developer channel.
Yeah.
What's the Envoy website?
I'll look. It's envoyproxy.io.
How do you spell that?
ENVOY proxy.io. So yeah, I'll post some things about this, but I have to I have to look up because Jack had some really good diagrams and of how he recommended DApp architecture to be created, you know, from a infrastructure perspective. And, you know, some of this is about, you know, how do you make that scale? So there's, you know, Envoy supports clusters. So one Envoy proxy could send to, you know, several R nodes. I haven't explored that either, but so yeah, hopefully someone from the community will, you know, weigh in on the kind of DevOps work that's required to make a decentralized and scalable. And certainly Kayvon's work on RSong with Kubernetes in the back and is an example of the kind of work that has to happen for scalability. So that's really cool.
I suppose we could make a Docker package or something that has Envoy and R node in it.
Yeah, that'd be really easy. That's how I'm launching with. I have them in separate machines so that I could test some failure conditions and, you know, rev one without the other. So on my local host, I have, you know, multiple Docker containers. So for example, I have an Envoy Docker that points to my local host R node, and then I have I have several other Envoy Dockers that, you know, point to the testnet nodes. But they're really lightweight. All that for either configuration, whether it be the gRPC friendly clients or the JSON clients, they're not doing much work. They're just in the case of gRPC, it's just stripping off the headers and tailors off of the HTTP request because the browsers at their current state don't talk gRPC without putting that stuff on. So that's all that. I mean, it does a lot more than that, but I'm just saying they're very lightweight and fast. Sort of like it, you know, NGIX doesn't do a whole lot, but it's used everywhere for HTTPS redirect.
Hey, Ed, do you mind to go through some of the Lowland contracts so we can have a better understanding what's happening under the hood?
Sure. Let me. Yeah, and these are the Roland contracts that I'm using are essentially the same as the demo row, the 1, 2, 3, 4. But I made just a few tweaks to make it simpler to parse on the return. Let's see. See if this is still. So the faucet is a relatively easy one, and I'll have to say that I'm not as great with explaining Rolang as other people are, but so okay. So the faucet me. you see it's pushed to the log, but I'll bring it up in the IDE. Actually, it's here as well. So let me do that. Does this resize? We'll do it. So yeah, this is in this directory the same as the demo script. Let me so that last link should take you to where the beginnings of this were, and then I just made only a few tweaks since there. So it's you know, it's getting the registry, you know, based on this predictable registry ID. So it's getting back the Rev Vault channel, which is the system or a blessed contract that's deployed. We can find that in GitHub as well and look at it. I'm not sure I could explain it too much, but one of the interesting things about these contracts, as I mentioned, is they most of these return this either, which is again a co-op.archain.ether.ether type, and it comes back as a string A, which is either false and then a string, and this ignore this first back quote that's just needed for Scala to quote, or it comes back as a true, and then the type that it's expecting. So that has to deal with you know, how it's eventually parsed back in the DApp code after listen for data at name comes back. So anyway, sorry, I got off track. So then it's
Also, by the way, how do we get this long string in the registry? Look, you know, in the global.
yeah. So this is a deterministic string that is created based on the deployment. So this is actually really interesting because contracts that you deploy in your DApp, let's say I eventually want to create a multi-sig contract and deploy it, and so it would go into the registry and it would have a similar name, and I want that to work throughout testnet and so forth, and I want to know if I version that, it's going to have a different name. So that's actually a great question, how that's generated. And so we will search for this Rev Vault code in GitHub. Branch dev. We know it's going to be down in Casper. I think it's in Genesis contracts. Yeah, so it's one of these, I think. No, I think these are older. It might be Rev. Here, okay. So this is the Mint or Rev, but you see it also way down in the source code, and how these strings are generated is really well described in one of these comments. I don't know if I'm going to find it here, but I found it in other. Well, let me just search for this string as an example. Okay, so it's not there. Casper API, block graph. Maybe while I'm searching, one of you could search as well. There's these one. Oh, would be a row. Yeah, so this isn't the best example of it, but it works. I'll paste this link in as well. There's a better explanation in one of the comments that I really liked how this was done. But so it's showing the shared key and the private key that is used for deploying this unit test. The user is the SK, is that secret key or shared key? I always get them confused. So the user must be public key, and then the timestamp for purposes of this test is fixed. And so with all of these as predictable, then the ultimately the URI is also predictable. But there's some other comments that in one of these that is really great at how this works. So let me keep looking, because I think it helps to understand sort of why the magic happens. It may take me just too darn long to find this thing. Anyway, you get the idea that it's a deterministic, predictable, forgeable names when the inputs are fixed, and timestamp being one of those in terms of what the URL ends up being. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay. And yeah, and somewhere in code there's a good explanation of it. What is this? Here's what I was looking for. All right, let me send this as well. So here, yeah, this table describes how it's computed exactly. This looks like a little bit, well, old because it has nonce in there, but I think this may have been replaced with timestamp. So I'm not sure nonce is still a thing in the registry. Maybe it is.
So the registry URI is that always the format of a row, column ID, column a hash, or in the future we can put in any like a tree structure like a usual web URI?
I think it's a fixed structure in that it's the it's the key when looking up in the registry, but then the value that goes there can be anything. I know that and it might be that insert signed and insert random come back with different values, but this is insert signed. We'll always have this. There's a desire by Chris Boscolo and myself, but especially Chris, to support the what's called the DID standard of syntax, so that and the self-sovereign identity community, including W3C verifiable claims community and others, are working on that. So he'd like to get that syntax into our registry so that we can play nicely with other self-sovereign ID solutions. But no, I think this is not, you can't in general set the syntax for this. But you can put whatever you want on the other side of it.
Yeah. I can't say I'm really in favor of a centralized DID system on our chain. I'm looking at creating DIDs, directories, but they're self-sovereign. You can use.
Oh, right. I understand. It'd be great to have a session with Chris around this. He understands it very deeply, and just because you have a DID doesn't mean you need to put it on chain or to make it public, or that you only have to have one. But for dealing with businesses, having a public, well-known DID that you can trust as they're owning it is very valuable, I believe. And so there's a whole that's a whole nother conversation, but it'd be great to have Chris on this kind of a dialogue around DIDs.
Yeah, I suppose it's.
Hi, Dan.
Hey, we made it.
We've been talking about DIDs and registry URIs just now, and then earlier I was showing some progress on the wallet and some of the dealing of exception handling and the either left right kind of stuff that comes back from some of the contracts. So that's what we've been up to.
Yeah, I think being able to associate a DID document with a registry address would probably be what I would, something I could, I would like. I mean, I think that would be reasonable.
Right, but yeah, it would be great, Dan, if I was saying that we could get a community like this together along with Chris Boscolo and others that care about self-sovereign identity and talking about the use of the registry or self-sovereign ID more broadly in the context of our chain. I think that'd be a really spirited and fun conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, Greg started that draft on channel-based security. That was one of the most interesting things I had seen in a long time, except that it didn't go anywhere. Well, it's been a bit long pause.
Yeah, I provided comments on that, and I liked it as well. And I really like how Drummond Reed of Sovereign and Evernym talks about. I think it's almost the same as channel-based security at an abstract level, with where you have two self-sovereign entities, and they create a Diffie-Hellman encrypted channel between them, or can, and I think there's a corollary, at least, with what Greg was saying with channel-based security. So I think that's a really interesting topic. So Dan, do you bring some brain candy or some demo with you? Anything you want to talk about?
I can show you what I've been doing. Oops. Well, I could do video, but that's not very interesting.
Love to see it.
I have been working on documentation and tests or examples for the rolling this RChain API. I actually don't have the one that everybody's asking for, which is getting something from the registry, but I've been sort of laying the groundwork for it. So there's things like this example, and what's interesting to me anyway is that this example gets tested. So while I was working on this, I discovered that the README had become that this example in the README had become out of date. In fact, that one still is. Oh, I'm on the wrong branch.
Yeah, I need to subscribe to this repo. I thought I had, but.
Well, this is my fork of it.
Oh, okay. Still, that'd be valuable to me.
Got that markup on that one wrong. So yeah, so sections like this have worked examples that get tested and stuff. And I reorganized the API so that it's got about 5 top-level things. Because it used to be this long list of functions, and you're like, who the heck knows which one I want to use and stuff. And I also did stuff like cite the Node API specification and stuff for each section. Some people have been sort of complaining about yellow paper stuff, and Greg has been saying there's specs where an independent team could, build another one. So that's true in some places and not true in others. I mean, it's more thoroughly done in some places than others. But like this RChain cryptography specification.
This is awesome, Dan.
Yeah. So meanwhile, there's been some issues. Oh, I'm not sure if it was on purpose that you closed this one. You didn't mean to close that, did you, Tim Worm? You're here, right?
Yeah.
Shall I reopen this?
Yeah, I just I can get the G string, so I closed it.
You can or cannot?
I can. I just parse the JSON, convert the JSON to string and get the numbers.
Okay, so the issue about signatures is actually done.
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Then I made a mistake. All right.
Can you remind me which crypto library that you chose and also why you chose that library? Obviously that it supports ED 25519.
Let's see.
You know, there's a lot of libraries or a few libraries out there, and they have different, you know, reputations, let's say, about how cryptographically correct they are and secure. Is it NaCl? I have somewhere which one it was.
Yeah, the one that we use is Tweetnacle, but I was trying to figure out why. Let's see.
Well, just at a high level, was it because of features or reputation, or there's not too many actually out there? It's like 3 or 4 I found, but
Probably both. What else? Trying to remember. It was probably when I was working on RSign was the first time I started using it. Yeah, the Knackle crypto library. Let's see. This thing certainly has a reputation for.
yeah.
This guy Bernstein knows what he's doing. He's kind of a jerk, but he knows what he's doing.
Okay. Nice.
And then so he released the code in a series of tweets. I think that was C code, and then somebody converted the
So you said Tweetnacle?
yeah.
Okay.
That's the one. I mean, that's not enough. There's a number of other cryptography libraries that I've had to use to get the job done.
So I'm aware of the Blake 2B, whatever it is. But what else besides those two?
Let's see. So there's Tweetnacle, JS SHA-3. That's the Keccak or whatever. That's the one that's used in Ethereum. And then this is a base 58 thing that was for
Yep, the addresses.
yeah, rev addresses. That's not really cryptography so much, but yeah, there's the Blake 2 hash, and then I have this command line client that's kind of part of this thing, which I think Joshi and others want me to make it a separate project, and so I've made it almost a separate project. And in that, I had to add SecP 256K1 because this.
Why?
For Ethereum signatures. So one of the things I did in this command line wallet was when we had the wallet check stuff for converting Rock to Rev.
Yeah.
So you had to do an Ethereum signature to get your Rock out.
Yeah, and someone will still have to do that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
But that part of the world is kind of disconnected from the current node.
Okay, so is the is wallet check no longer going to be used? they'll use
Well-
the Genesis, a Genesis type of example. Find that was demonstrated the other week.
They demonstrated Genesis getting rock to rev.
No, what they demonstrated was, you could call it an airdrop feature or a faucet feature. So that I imagine.
Right, so that's not rock to rev. Yeah, so they have this whole vault thing that's its own world, but they don't have the two worlds connected, as far as I know. They might go back to wallet check, or they might use something else. I don't know.
Well, if it seems like in the Genesis, the same kind of code that implemented the faucet, if you had the private key, you could use a DApp or wallet app to create your, ED255, whatever, 19, and the rev address, and, end up in the same place if that faucet equivalent was done as a the rock to rev process. I don't know what the intention is. I'm just saying that's another potential they could do instead of wallet check.
Well, it would have the equivalent functionality of wallet check, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
One way or another, you have to prove that you have that key.
The private key. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Making people take their Ethereum private key and sticking it in a TweetNac in a ED25519 thing is kind of weird.
Yes. Yeah.
I guess we can write code to do that, but I guess I've written code to do that in a way. So I could show the current state of the art of my command line wallet, and then I guess I can answer some questions about the registry, maybe. I don't know if anybody here has any. So let's see if this thing is working today. So that's the usage, and I think one or two of these is left over from old designs. But okay, so the way those are kind of cache. Well, all right. So the way it works is you generate a key, and we'll just call it K1. And I'm just going to use K1 for the password. So now I've got a key called K1. There's its rev address. There's its public key, and it's stored in keystore.json. So where is it? Somewhere. Yeah, there it is. So that's the default key store file.
Are you using the Ethereum libraries to create that key store?
I actually re-implemented it because I wanted to know what was going on.
Okay, but it's similar style. Okay.
Yeah, it's this much here. The stuff after the K1 colon is exactly what you would store in a. I haven't stored each key in a separate file. It's the only difference. I've stored all the keys in one file.
Nice.
So all that was local cryptography stuff, right? All I did was roll the dice and store the results in a file with encrypted. Did that make sense to anybody else? Has anybody looked at their Ethereum key store files?
They look just like this, or pretty close, and like you're describing, that's true from, I think, what MetaMask stores in its local storage, and it's true with like my Ether wallet or my crypto wallet does the same thing.
Right. So there's an import thing where if you have a JSON file, it'll import it into this key store. Okay, and then and if you just want to get the information back, that's also a local operation. And right now, none of this is the public key. The only way I have to get the public key is to decrypt the private key. and then convert that to a public key. So for the Ethereum community decided it's kind of a privacy issue. They don't want even public keys leaking more than they have to.
Yeah, good philosophy.
But it's a little inconvenient to have to supply your password for things that are only getting at your public key, but oh well.
Yep, I can relate.
Okay, so then, so now we have a key. And then the next thing is I ended up having some on-chain utility functions, which are a very thin layer around the vault stuff. And so the next thing you have to do is get that on-chain. So you are client register tools.row. What did I do? Register, oh, right. Now we have to sign our deployments. So I have to tell it what key I'm going to use to sign the deployment for that. Oh. So this is my node at the bottom of the screen. Okay, and so my tools.row got stuck in the registry at that URI. Now, should I just keep going with wallet stuff, or does anybody want to see what happened behind the scenes there?
I just had a brief question, which is that using insert signed?
No, using insert arbitrary.
Insert arbitrary. Oh, so to get a repeatable process where you would want to reuse this at next invocation of the command line, why not use insert signed? Why did you choose arbitrary?
It was easier at the time anyway. So the way I make it repeatable is that I store the results. So this is the hash of the code that I deployed, and that's the registry key, and then I went ahead and stored the code itself. Not for any, the code doesn't really need to be stored. This is a cache basically. So if I register that again, it'll say that it's already registered.
Okay, if it's a cache, so I've been using public names a lot, and I've been told they're going to go away for temporary stuff. So if they go away, this is really the only other choice to put stuff on chain as insert signed or insert arbitrary, right?
Correct.
Okay, got it. But if you wanted to reuse this beyond this session, you would have had to use insert signed. Is that correct? Assuming the public keys are no longer there, or public, sorry, name. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Just as a conceptual question.
Yeah, yeah, insert sign sort of seems harder to me. It's like you have to think hard about the fact, these I can just throw it away and use it again and stuff. And
yeah, I earlier before you joined, I pasted a link to how insert signed can create these deterministic URIs. So that's cool to understand.
yeah. Yeah, so this registry.json is the sort of a start of a kind of package loader stuff that Joshi built, and I sort of built my own take on it and stuff. Mine doesn't do dependency management, but it does I use this kind of Rolang extension, and then you send whatever thing you want to register to that thing, and then it gets wrapped in this, and this is the thing that does the insert arbitrary, and so this gets combined right in there, and and then this gets run, and the result comes back and gets stored here. That was probably too fast if you really want to understand, but I'm going to skip ahead just for now. Okay, so now we have the tools contract on the chain, and so we can do things like now, our clients, if I want to generate, this is how I do the faucet Genesis Vault thing. And how much should I give myself?
$1 million. Oh, this reminds me of a question. The contracts seem to be integers. Is that an indication that revs are not going to be divisible beyond one?
Well, it just means that there's all the programming is done in whatever the equivalent of way, not the equivalent of ether.
Yeah. Okay. I assume I'm getting back integer from the gRPC, but maybe it's going to be a long. But okay, got it.
Oh, you mean 32 versus 64 bits?
Yeah. Well, I had two questions. Yeah, but it does seem like it's an integer currently.
Well, I don't understand your question. All the Ethereum and Bitcoin stuff is all done with integers.
Oh, okay. Okay. So this would be the equivalent of way, which is fine.
Or Satoshis or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Got
okay.
It.
So now oh, right. So I've only done a little bit, the signature stuff. I only made it as far as register. I guess the rest of my client, I have not upgraded to do signed deploys. So this is broken.
And are you on 0.9.2 or current dev?
Somewhere around there. It's dev that was current as of whenever I compiled this a few days ago.
And other than the requirement for signature, has there been any other interface or behavior changes that have caught you off guard?
No.
Oh, that's great. Okay. That makes me more optimistic.
Yeah, and so all this stuff does not use public names when it gets stuff. It always uses unforgeable names.
Dan, by the way, while you're in that code, where you just were.
Oh.
Which was, the Genesis, or do you have a send Rolang?
Yeah. Doesn't do anything interesting.
Well, there was a bug that I wanted just to point out. Are you on it now? I can't quite. Oh, transfer. Yes. So there's an issue here, a couple lines above your cursor, where there's an expectation that the two rev vault exists. So you should add somewhere in here a find or create for the two channel.
It doesn't do that automatically?
No. So, just like it did a find or create of the from, it should do a find or create of the two in this row line here. So let's say you got at Genesis, Alice got 100 test rev and wants to send it to Bob, but Bob's rev vault doesn't exist yet.
Yes.
So this contract would fail and so I don't know if
because you can't recover the public key from the rev address, can you?
Right. I think that's how it is. So this should be modified. I think I had to do it on my Alice Pays Bob work to add a find or create of the two.
Bummer.
It's just a couple lines of code here, so it's
Well,
not.
wait a minute. If I can do a finder create, then the transfer method could do the finder create.
Exactly, it could, but
Okay.
it doesn't.
They just haven't done that yet. All right. Well. But as far as not using, whoa, that was interesting. Not using public names. This is how I get the unforgeable name that is going to be allocated in the code that I deploy. So the code that gets deployed, goes new return channel. And so this is how I get the return channel. As I say, would you please give me the first 1 names that are going to be deployed if the user is this public key and the timestamp is that. And in theory, one could calculate this on the client side, but I haven't figured out. So I added the code on the server side. So it goes and asks the server, what name are you going to allocate? And then when you actually deploy the code, then you can listen. Yeah, and I ended up.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, Dan, I just pasted in the chat kind of the algorithm that is used to create to predict that predict that, what is it called, deterministic registry.
No, this is not registry.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is a name.
This is an unforgeable name, right?
Okay. And you need that when you have 2 contracts interacting with each other in the same.
No, there's just one contract. All I want to know is I want to know what that is, so that I can listen on it.
Oh, right. Okay. And yeah, again, I'm cheating by doing public names. Okay.
Right.
I'm gonna have to deal with all this eventually. Okay. I'm kicking the can down the road.
Right. Now, have you stuck anything in the registry?
Maybe a month ago, I dabbled with
Okay.
insert arbitrary, but I think, I think I'll do. I'll put insert arbitrary and insert signed on my list to do. I'm close.
Oh, you've been using public names to get at things that
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm curious, Dimworm, what are you working on?
I'm developing a game like a slot machine.
Oh, cool.
I just deployed it on a server today, and it works.
Is it on testnet?
Today, testnet is polluted. I cannot use testnet, so I made a standalone node.
Is it something I can reach from here?
Yes. Let me. Paste the link. But I'm not sure how many people can run the game at the same time.
I'm gonna let myself be distracted slightly for a moment here. What's this thing called? Yeah, Yeah, this is where that comes from. This is code I actually wrote,
Good job.
or an adaptation of it anyway.
Can you paste the link to what you just looked at?
Registry SIGGEN. So registry SIGGEN was probably used to create the, yeah, it spits out this. Anyway, okay. Ooh, very shiny.
Neat, Dimworm.
Yeah, I'm working on this game, and I will have a workshop in the Chinese community to tell people how to make the app.
Oh,
The
cool. So is this how I get some rev?
No, currently I don't know how to generate rev. It's just some numbers. You can click the faucet and
Okay, but it is how I, okay. This is how you intend to make it work. Okay.
yeah.
Oh, just once. Okay. What does this
Yeah.
button do?
Then you can pay 1 rev to play the game.
Ah, okay. Oh, and then I pick from here?
Yeah. No, you are waiting for the smart contract to run.
Oh, okay.
Maybe there's something wrong. I don't know. I just deployed it. And the Roland generates, oh yeah, it's running.
I got 3 in a row here. Did I win anything?
No, in the one row, 3 same icons, you can got 1 rev.
That's fun.
So you got 0 rev.
It did seem to do it more than once. Is it done now?
Yeah, it's done.
Okay.
And you can play another one.
It's pretty neat.
But I think more than 1 people play the game, maybe there will be something wrong because it's the only 1 smart contract is running.
Okay. Who's here today? I haven't even checked. Okay, it's the 4 of us.
Maybe there's something wrong.
We lost, who did we lose? We lost Jerry, we lost someone else. Yeah.
Attic B.
Right.
Yeah, I'm going to need to jump off pretty soon myself.
So I probably screwed up the results. I ran it twice. I won't run it again.
Are you sharing the code for this, Dimworm?
Not yet.
Okay.
I will open source it in maybe next week.
Oh, cool. Okay, so you were able to figure out what you needed to do to get this JavaScript stuff to work.
Yes.
Cool. All right. Well, I'll keep polishing this documentation up a little bit, but at least. Yeah. Oh, the other thing that's happened is that I have changed the API around. So some of the names have changed and stuff like that. So like this used to be these used to be sort of top level in the API, and now they're all under Roland Crypto and stuff. So
yeah,
you just have to change your imports a little bit.
Yes.
Okay. What's new with you, Jim?
I think I missed something.
I was sort of saying goodbye, but going to give you a chance to say hello first.
Hello. Yeah, I'm on the side here. I'm working on my community contract. I've got some basic functionality, but I want to set it up so that the actions of the community or the methods of the community are dynamic.
Right.
Have a directory of methods that would maintain with respect to the community. Just thinking of how I want to do that. I mean, right now, when you create a community, it returns capabilities that includes the info channel, a read capability of the directory, a write capability of the directory, and a grant capability of the directory. You grant permissions for people to modify their own entry in the directory in the community.
Cool.
So, so I guess the operations on the community will have to take as an argument or part of the name of capability.
I'd have to think about it.
All right. Well,
My brain's full of other stuff. All right. Talk to you guys later.
Thanks, everyone. Later.
thanks.
Thank you.